and commercial mixed. And so I've just been doing property management now for, like I said, since basically 1999. And I have a passion for people, a love for the community, and gotta love people to do property management. So that's my background, and just enjoy doing it. And like I said, you gotta have a love for people and a passion for your community.
Definitely. And a little housekeeping that I did forget to mention before we got started. If anyone has questions, please feel free to put the questions in the Q&A box. Otherwise, if you just want to say hey or chat amongst the group, put it in the chat box and we'll make sure we get to your questions as quickly as possible. So Keita, we're going to dive right into it. So tell us, what is the role of a full service property manager?
The role of a full service property manager is we are the third party professional that handles ensure that investment properties or landlords, that have one or two rental properties, their investment is protected and cared for and managed with due diligence and care. So, buy and hold properties and real estate investment rentals, which some people refer to as buy and hold, is the safest investment in the world, and cared for, properly, it is the safest investment. So the property manager's role is to definitely protect the investment, make sure that the investor or landlord cash flows, make sure that aesthetically the property is in good condition, inspect, and do way much more than just collecting the rent. So, the role is to care for a property just like it's your own property.
And you know what, I'm glad you said that, because many people always seem to think that all property managers do is just collect a portion of their rent. There's so much more to this role that a lot of people don't know about. Would you agree?
I do, because you also are in charge of the finance. So you're allocating money, you're handling finance, you're keeping up with taxes, your 1099s. You have to keep up with the local laws on different things like licensings, and what is, each county has their different rules on rental license, on lead license, on how much you can charge for late fees, how much you can charge, when you can start the late fees, and just much more. And so it's just not, like you said, collecting rent. It is the full service, from finance, management styles, from marketing, tenant retention, and finance.
And, so. And from an investor standpoint, we have several rental properties, and there's no way that I would do it myself. And you get a lot of people that say, all right, I'm not giving up that percentage for anybody to do my property management. So what's the typical cost associated with hiring a property manager?
It really depends on the price point of the property, but it can range from 8 to 10%, or sometimes there could be a flat fee. It just depends on the scope of services that each investor would like for us to do. And sometimes they're tailored to their needs. So the typical range is 8 to 10%. And like you said, some people want to self-manage and do it themselves, thinking they're saving money, but in the long run, it's their time, as well as it end up costing them a lot more in the end, with the emotional side of not, doing the things they're supposed to do to collect. And if you think about it, it's just like insurance, right? So you pay insurance premium every month, and do you use your insurance? No, you use your insurance once you have a car accident, or what somebody does theft or damage to your car. That person, same as a property manager, they're there for you when you need them. So it's almost like a policy. So, and it really costs you sometimes about $100 or less than $200. But in the long run, if you're doing it yourself and trying to save money, you can cost yourself thousands of dollars.
Yeah, because there's a lot more into it than just collecting that rent.
Yeah.
Awesome. So for the fee charge, what type of service do you provide? Is it finding the tenant, move-in, inspections? Just tell us, I know it's a lot, or maybe you want to break it down a little bit. So yeah. Walk us through the process of, I call you, I want to rent my house. I want you to manage my house while it's rented. What happens next?
Okay, so full service and the cost is associated with the coming to your house, just like you would do a listing presentation, finding out the price point of the house. So you definitely want to find out the comps, what an investor or landlord can get for the rent. I do and provide a property tour with them, go through and see if there's anything cosmetically they need to do to get it ready for rent, whether they can get more money or they don't need to do a certain thing to get less money. And so property manager is going to do that tour with the owner or investor to come up with the price point for rent. So property manager is going to set the rate based on comps, based on cosmetics. So rental property is a little different from selling a house, because when you're selling a house, the price point sometimes is derived by the market, and it's the appraisal and it's the comps. Well, with rental property, the price can be derived because what you did cosmetically to the inside of your unit. So if you put in hardwood floors and you put in granite countertops, give them some nice appliances, your next door neighbor could be getting $1,600 for rent, and then because you've done a lot more to yours, you can be getting $2,000. So the rental rate is a little bit different with the rental market than it is on the sales side of things. And so an expert property manager will be able to know and look at market trends to figure out the best price point to price, your rental property. And if you want more money, this is, what you would have to do. So we definitely go in and do that first. And then once we set that price, and then if you hire us, then we definitely go ahead marketing the property. So with that fee, you market the property for rent. You put it on several different mediums. Like we advertise on 30 different search engines, including the MLS and Zillow, Trillia, HotPads, Rent.com, military sites. So you're going to have full exposure to the market to find the correct tenant that you want for your house. Then after we advertise it and we have, willing applicants that want to apply, we do the tenant screening. So the tenant screening is in depth, and most people who, again, self-manage, they don't properly screen. Sometimes they just may pull a credit report and just say, okay, I'm just going to look at their credit. Oh, their credit is good, so we're going to go with them. But on the property, management side with an expert property manager, you're going to get an eviction report, you're going to get a criminal background, and you're going to get their credit. You're going to check employment verification. You're going to check pay stubs. You're going to ask for bank statements. It's a lot that goes into the screening process, because you really want to make sure that you're getting the perfect tenant so that you can cash flow and the owner can cash flow, because property managers don't get paid if rent is not collected. So the due diligence with the tenant screening process is very in-depth, and that is associated with the cost. And then once we screen the tenant, then we do your move-in, and then there's a checklist that you go through. So we do that. Am I going and going? Right?
I'm getting tired.
I'm going too far,
to be honest.
I know, but that's full service. This is all that you're getting for 8 to 10%. This is just not, So again, this is expert full service property management, not someone that's just saying they want to manage property because they think they're just going to, find a tenant, collect the rent, and it's over. Uh-huh. So
that's how our first conversation went. I was like, okay, you can do it.
Right. So, and then you have your accounting software. You got to have the technology platform. Owners want to get in and look at their back office. Owners want to get in and see when the rent was paid. And then you want to do inspections. So with that management fee, we do inspections. We tailor it, like I said, to the investor's needs, whether it's every 3 months, whether it's every 6 months, and whether we scale back to a year. And then, we have to keep up with the renewals. So property managers should make sure they know that the lease is ending 60 days prior. And if it is, you already go back and start marketing the property to make sure that your vacancy rate is very low. So we do that. And then the not so fun part is if they don't pay, then the property manager has to file eviction. So they're filing failure to pay in court. We have to show up in court. And if they are, reduced to an eviction, we have to show up with the sheriff. We have to show up with the locksmith. We have to move them out of there. So these are things that an investor doesn't have to worry about. We do this all. So that's the full service kind of short version of the A to Z.
And without a property manager, that'll be something that you would have to do yourself if you were managing your own property, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
Question. I want to dig a little bit deeper into tenant screening, because I don't believe that people truly realize how important it is to really have a well-qualified tenant in your property. Because I know, and I've had conversations with some friends who actually just rented to someone they know because they like them. And like you said, they didn't do the full due diligence, like screening, evictions, all that stuff. So could you just dig a little bit deeper into that? And then we also have some I almost said costumes. We also have some questions coming in from our guests.
That's fine. So the tenant screening process will make or break the investor's cash flow and net operating income increase and their capitalization rate when you're going to go and sell. So the tenant screening process is, to me, the most important process of the vetting a person to move into your property, because like I said, if they're not collecting rent, I'm not getting paid, the company's not getting paid, and neither is the owner. So the tenant screening process is very in-depth, and we like to get multiple applications so we can make sure we're choosing the right tenant. So if you do have a property listed and you're only kind of like going with the first applicant you get, or you get one, and if it was not, you know, exactly what you expected, you probably should wait till you get more applications in. So that's what we do as well. But if you screen someone, you get a glowing, just hypothetically 800 credit score, great job, been on the job 10, 15 years, rental reference is fine. On paper, I always say if someone has a close to an 800 credit score, they're not going to mess their credit up for a rental property, because we do wage garnishments and go after tenants when they don't pay. Just a sidebar. So
I didn't know, but good sidebar. Thank you. Thank you.
So, and Maryland is the state that recognizes wage garnishment. So just be careful for you people that don't pay. If the landlord wants to enforce that, we can move forward, and, your taxes will be taken and your wage garnishment. So again, that's why the tenant screening process is very important, because we are vetting and we are checking credit. We are looking at debt to income ratios. We're looking at the matrix of they must gross 3 times of the monthly rent. And we get, and I hate to say this, but we're giving them the raw tonight. Sometimes you get tenants that make fake pay stubs. I've been through that because I have been doing this for 20 years and I've gotten the fake pay stubs. And so now I've even implemented, no, I need to see your bank account. Like, I need to see that this money actually went into your account, especially if the credit is a little iffy. And I need to see your last 3 rent payments you made prior, if I have anything that's kind of questionable on the background. So because of my experience, when I see questionable credit reports, I'm like really looking at all of that. And that comes with experience and time. So again, the tenant screening process is important. And criminal, I mean, they have laws against, we can't discriminate for those type of things, but we do look at the criminal background. And as far as the eviction report, that's important, because anytime you are late on your rent, whether you was with an apartment complex or a property management company, when that company files a failure to pay in court, it's going on your eviction report. Mm-hmm. So just so you know, sometimes it's not an actual eviction, but if you are constantly late, it's messing up your credit, because I'm going to see every time that you was late and every time you went into the rent court. So we do look at that, and so we're going to ask questions. And also, if we see a year, like say it was 2018, they had a bad year, and then everything else was good after that, then sometimes I ask them just to write a letter of explanation on what happened, during this year, and just so it kind of sets the tone to make a prospect not want to repeat the same thing again. So the screening process is just not looking at the credit score, looking at the income. It's a lot of compensating factors on the approval process.
Yeah, I believe, because we had, I believe it was one client that we had, or one of the agents had a client, and they was looking for a rental, and I believe the rent was due on the 5th, but they paid the rent on the 7th or the 8th. So they had like 12 eviction notices, even though they paid it late. So I guess after they pay it past the date, that requires them to get an eviction letter.
They get an eviction letter, and then it's called a failure to pay rent notice. But unfortunately, that failure to pay rent notice goes on your eviction report. Okay. It's almost like with the credit report, you have a delinquency. So it's basically showing on your eviction report that you're delinquent and you're like 30 days past due, or 7 days past due, or 15 days past due. That's why it is important to pay on time, or set your pay date at a different date. And sometimes if I notice that pattern with tenants, say they just get paid the 15th and 30th of the month, we can change their pay, to not try to affect them like that, because it does mess with the tenant screening process. And if we do see that, it is a red flag.
Awesome. Wow, that's a lot of information, stuff I would not even have thought about. I guess that's why we work with property managers, right?
Yeah, again, it's not just collecting the rent, it's experience because there's some professional tenants
Yes,
out
there
there.
are. So before we get into that, I definitely want to address this question coming in. So one of the questions we have is, as a property manager, are you required to have and maintain specific credentials other than your realtor's license?
In the state of Maryland, no, you don't need a license. In DC, you do. You need to either be a broker or you have to have your license as a property manager in DC. In the state of Maryland, no. So if you're not in the DMV, in Virginia, you don't either. You don't need a license. But if you are not in the DMV, you always have to check your local, state, and county regulations on property management because each one is different. I'm from North Carolina, and in North Carolina, you actually have to be an agent. And we are provisional brokers in North Carolina, so you have to be basically a broker to do property management, or you can't do it.
Okay.
And
So
as a landlord, same thing.
not as a landlord. The landlord, if you're managing your own properties, you don't have to have a license. You're an investor, or even if someone works for you, they just can't be really labeled as a property manager. They just work for you. They can, manage some of your stuff, but you can't advertise as a property manager without a license or, like I said, a broker's license or a real estate license in some states. But Maryland, you do not need a license to be a property manager.
Okay, awesome. So I want to look at it from the homeowners or investors perspective. I hire you, I'm working with you. What is some of the stuff in the background that happens? Like, how do I check that my rent is paid? Is it a direct deposit? Or just tell me a little bit about what the other side as a homeowner or investor can see from using you as a property manager.
Well, we have our systematic dates that we pay out rent on. They're usually paid out between the 9th and the 12th of the month because a typical mortgage is laid after the 15th. So we definitely try to make sure that all landlord investors have their payments in by the 15th. But if the tenant is, late and they pay after the 5th, say they paid the 7th or 8th, that payment is usually pushed back towards the end of the month because there's 7 to 10 days to clear federal reserves. So the way that we collect rent is through different channels. So they can either pay online through a portal. They can, of course, mail it in. And we have 2 different offices that they can drop rents off at. So you want to also make sure that there's many channels that a tenant can pay the rent. So it's no excuse that, I put it in the mail, snail mail, there's different channels. I can collect, I can actually go in and take it out of your debit card. So we want to ensure that the investor landlords get their rents before their mortgage is late. So sometimes I tailor an investor's needs based on their mortgage due date if they have a mortgage. Again, we do try to tailor, but the typical date is between the 9th and 12th of each month. And then the tenants can go on the portal and pay. And then we do EFT directly into the owner's accounts. So everything is pretty much electronic. And I am very big on technology platforms and electronic everything. Like I can send an owner a payment right from my cell phone in my bed. So that's just I want to make sure they get paid quick.
Okay.
And just to clarify that for some people that might be listening, when you say you post it to the owner's account, you're paying it to the owner has to pay their own mortgage. Is that correct?
That's correct. That is correct. Now, some of my big investors, some investors have 30, 40 properties, and sometimes they will delegate, that we don't pay the mortgage, then we pay it to the mortgage company, but it's the same thing. We set it up and it goes directly into their, mortgage account. So it just depends. We can set it up to pay their mortgage, to pay their condo association dues, HOA dues. Even, I pay some of my owner's taxes and insurance. So there is, again, with the full service property management, sometimes we tailor it because some of our clients are out of the country. Some are not, in the state, so they can't even handle their financial affairs. So they may pay a little more, but we can handle paying their other bills as well, like taxes, HOA, condo associations, and insurance. Just has to be set up automated.
Awesome. And you just touched on technology. So I definitely want to dig a little bit deeper into that. So what are some of the tools that are provided by a property management company or you per se to keep track of the accounting and all that stuff? Because my
Yeah,
head's like this right now.
yeah, like right now.
Yeah.
So the technology platform, again, like I mentioned, I'm big on technology and electronics. So electronic things. So you with the experienced property manager, everything is you have to have your accounting software. I have different softwares to handle different things, like even with the lease creation. I mean, I can do a lease from my phone. They can sign it from their phone. Like everything is pretty much I can do it in my hand and conduct business anywhere. And it just makes it, streamlines it, and it's like a back office. So the technology platform is like your back office that doesn't, it's not your people running around. So with the accounting software, it's very important because like we manage over 100 doors. So there's no way that you can create an Excel spreadsheet and try to keep up and allocate who paid what and when they called in for service requests and maintenance. And so the accounting software is very important because everything should be documented. So each investor at the end of the year will have their financials and everything sent to them in regards to their cash flow, their rent rolls, their vacancy rate, their maintenance reports, because it kind of allows the investors to forecast for the next year how much money they have to set aside for repairs, how many times the rent was late, or just to get the percentages on their losses. And so the accounting software is very important because it keeps up with all of that. So, each person will have to choose which accounting software they use, and there's plenty out here. And it is not free. It's definitely a cost with everything, but it's definitely worth it. And I'm big on that because the investors need to be able to log in and look at their own stuff. If they can't get one of our staff members on the phone, they should be able to log in and see if the tenant paid their rent. They should be able to log in and see if the tenant called in for maintenance or how many times. And if they wanted to, I don't suggest to talk to the tenant. They have the tenant's telephone number, their email address, their contracts, the leases. I mean, everything is at their fingertips, just like what I can see. And it just kind of cuts down on that curiosity of them wondering that the tenant paid the rent or wondering what their finances are going to look like for the next month.
So, Keita, I'm sorry, babe.
Now, I was going to say that was good coming into my next question, because we talked a little bit about the rent and eviction. So just say, for instance, that the rent gets paid late. Just kind of explain a little bit, what does that process look like for you as being a property manager and also as a landlord if the rent didn't come in when it should come in?
So you were reading my mind. That was my question too.
I love it. That's why you guys are a team and together.
Yeah, that's what everyone wants to, because I think everyone thinks it's good, because I've spoken to clients, they're like, oh, I want to manage a property. And I'm like, well, do you know what to do if the tenant doesn't pay their rent? And I get that blank stare and I give it right back to them as well. So definitely talk about that, because that's some of the things that people don't consider when they want to self-manage their properties.
Well, yeah, and if you have a full-time job, you probably don't want to self-manage because, what if they call you at 2:00 while you're on a conference call in a board meeting and they're saying that, my ceiling is flooding. I have my whole carpet is wet. So again, that's just touching on the self-management. But let me go to the question about the eviction process. So when they don't pay the rent on the 1st, they have the grace period until the 5th. Our company files the eviction on the 7th. So the problem with self-managing is most landlords will listen to the tenant say, oh, I'm going to pay on the 15th, or I'll get it in, and then they wait before they file. There is a process. First of all, when you go and file a failure to pay rent, you're not going to get a court date until 2 weeks out from the time that you file. So if you're waiting to the mid-month to file, they're going to have a whole month where they didn't pay rent. And then it goes into the 2nd month. And then that's the longer process to get them out of the home if they're just playing the game and don't really have the money to pay. So filing the failure to pay paperwork is very important, and you should do it. We do it a set time every month. So the week of the 5th, when they don't pay, we're filing like 2 days later. We just gather it all and we file. Even if it comes in on the 10th or 12th, then we, of course, when we get to court, we dismiss the case because they paid. But at the same time, you still have to file. So once we file the failure to pay rent, and they don't pay, we go to court. The judge will, pretty much either give us judgment and default, or they will find out, what's going on. And if they don't show up, you automatically get possession. So once you get possession of the property, they have 4 days to come up with the money, or you file what is called a writ. And that writ is when you're actually filing for the eviction, for the sheriff to come out and, either lock it up or put them out. And so that process also takes a while. It depends on which county you're in. Baltimore City, believe it or not, everybody has their myths that Baltimore takes forever, but actually Baltimore City right now is the fastest on evictions.
Wow.
Prince George is pretty slow. And of course, I talked to one of the sheriff-elects during the campaign season before, and he said it's because they don't have enough manpower. They don't have enough sheriffs to do the eviction, so that's why it's slow. So sometimes in PG County, it can take you up to 2 to 3 months to get a sheriff out. And don't let it be during the holidays or cold seasons. You can go 3 months and someone's in your house. That's why it's important to file immediately and not wait. And so most landlords run into the pitfall of just waiting. And then they call and hire me to then take care of it. And then they all say the same song. I knew I should have filed a long time ago, but I was just giving them a chance. And because they typically don't have time to go to court, because you can be in court, could be at 1 o'clock and you don't leave at 4 o'clock. So it's not like you're just going in. Yeah. So.
Yeah, we have some questions coming in. Well, that's a lot, Keita. And I'm like, all right, you could do it. You got it. Thank you. Just call me with the updates.
Yes. Most people just say, oh, she's just the property manager. Okay.
Well, we see you not just the property manager.
You're just the property manager. You're just collecting my rent. Okay.
Gotcha. So we have some questions coming in. Actually, this is a good one. So how do you handle a landlord that is not tech savvy? I guess that came about because
yes, that is a good question. Thank you. Because believe it or not, I do have a lot that is not tech savvy, and it's so funny because yes, a lot. And so I do, again, I kind of spoil my investors. So we'll have a weekly meeting or a monthly meeting on what's going on because they don't know how to log on. So we set a time to just give updates. Like one of my investors, I know I have to talk to every Thursday at 5:30. And that's because he owns an apartment building and it's 8 units and it's a lot going on. So he wants to know every week what's going on, and he doesn't know how to log on and look at everything. So every week he's like, okay, so what unit paid and what's going on with that property. So I do, and I do, tailor his needs. And also I will send him his statements manually. So I'll send him his property cash management report in each tenant's register so he can look at it. So if they don't have email, then like I said, sometimes it just really depends. I'll mail it, or you can come into the office and we can go over it. Some people like to just really walk in and talk to you. They want to just be tangible. Like, I want to know what's going on. And that's mostly of my project managers. Like, I manage a lot of property for project managers, and they are very hands-on.
Oh, no. So, I want to text. I'll log in. I don't need to talk to you, Keita.
Yeah, and I have some that never wants to talk to me. And I have some investors that when I call, they say, I really want to like you, but when your number comes up on my phone, I'm scared and I don't want to pick it up. Because if I call them, then there's something wrong.
It's wrong because they're so hands off. So they know if your number comes up and
they're all scared. It's like, it's like your child calling you in the middle of the night.
And one thing too that I appreciate is you had a lot of this technology in place prior to COVID-19. So you were already operating in the technical space to be able to handle clients out of town, maybe out of the country. Yeah. You was already in that space prior to COVID-19.
Yeah.
And for me, that was a big one too.
Yeah. And actually, talk about COVID, we do have some questions that are all similar surrounding COVID. Mm-hmm. So some of the questions that's being asked is that, a lot of the courts here are not open due to COVID. And some people have not paid their rent, of course, because of the laws that have been enacted for COVID. What is your recourse or game plan around this situation?
Well, I had my attorney, and also one thing I forgot to mention is a full service property manager is going to have an attorney on retainer. So I have my cell phone in one hand and my attorney in the other. That's what I always say. So my attorney wrote a letter, a COVID-19 letter that was very nice as well as tactful in regards.
Very nice. I like how you said that. Very nice.
Political
So I had her write a letter to all the tenants, and we understand the world pandemic and what's going on, and if they've truly lost their jobs and they truly didn't get a stimulus check, didn't get unemployment, and they don't have things, our empathy and sympathy did go out to them. But the courts are open now, number one. Number two,
is that all DC and Maryland?
Maryland courts are open. DC courts, I think it's open. I don't the attorney handles DC, so I don't want to say for sure, because again, my attorney handles a lot of the evictions in DC, because in DC, just so you know, as a property manager, you can't go to court. You have to hire an attorney. Yeah. So the Maryland courts, I know Baltimore courts is open and Prince George's courts is open, but my lawyer basically said all the courts never stop being open for filing your failure to pay. So during the COVID, anyone who didn't pay, you could have still filed your failure to pay. It's just that they'll mail you your court date when the courts open back up. So that's what the letter stated as well. Also during COVID, if you did not pay your rent, and when the courts do open, you are going to have the due diligence to explain and to prove that you didn't get any income during that time. There is, the eviction orders in place where we couldn't file evictions for 3 months, but those are being lifted now. And you're going to have to, pretty much prove that you didn't have any income coming in during that time. So there have to be, if you were working, there has to be a letter from your employer. Of course, that people can check to see if you really were getting unemployment or not. There's just little avenues. So you have some people that really had a hardship, and you have some people that just took advantage of not paying the rent for these 3 months. So we're on it, and we're trying to help out as much as we can. Also, there's also programs for tenants who really did experience the hardship that different municipalities are paying. There's different programs where if you take your lease and prove that you didn't work, they're paying the rent. And, so some mortgages also are giving owners, a forbearance on the back end where they didn't pay their mortgage for 3 months, that they can, put it on the back end, but some are making sure it's due the 4th month. So each person's case is different, but we're on it because, again, we retain a lawyer. So all that keeps us out of trouble. So we'll know what we can do and we can't do, but we're definitely on the pandemic and people who didn't pay willingly.
And that failure to pay, is that something you can mail in, or you have to physically take that to court? How does that work?
You can actually do it online. You can do a failure to pay in different counties online. It takes longer for you to get a court date, but during COVID, that's what a lot of the attorneys were doing and property managers. But like I said, the courts are pretty much open now to file your failure to pay rents. So
awesome. We have some more questions coming in. They're coming in. Get ready. You talked about the eviction process. So some of the questions coming in are, is there an additional fee for handling the eviction process outside of the regular property management fee, or how does that work?
No.
No? Okay.
Yeah. Awesome. It's not an additional fee. Is that, again, you're paying the 8% monthly, so it's part of the monthly fee, and then also that's also part of the vetting process, because it's no fun to be in court. So we're trying to make sure we get tenants that we're not in court all the time, but that's not. Now, the only time there is an extra fee associated with court cases in regards to property management, if you have a tenant that's suing you. Okay. So a tenant can sue you for trip and fall. They can sue you for mold. They can sue you for you didn't fix something in a timely manner. Sometimes I tell landlords, this needs to be fixed, and they can choose not to fix it. They'll say, I'm not fixing it because they broke it. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, if they break it and you didn't fix it and it's a hazard and they sue you, then that's out of our scope. You have to indemnify the property management company for that. We will, help you and go to court as a witness, but at that point, that's not included in the management fee because, we've advised you that this was going on and you chose not to fix it. And if they sue you, then you have to pay for your own attorney fees.
Hire the professional.
That's what we say. Hire the professional. We have another question that comes in. This is actually a really good question. So what about water? So suppose you have a tenant who pays rent sometimes and never pays the water bill. So I would say, I guess that depends on how you set it up. If the water isn't included or excluded out of rent, how does that work?
That is the, again, that is the reason why you need a property manager. You know why? Because, and I'll give you a nugget, and I'm just going to give you one on that, because that sounds like somebody who possibly is self-managing or a property manager that runs into tenants not paying their water bills. So you have to, most of the time, we include that in the rent. Because first of all, in Baltimore City and Baltimore, different places, they're not going to pay it, even in PG. So I will say, for one, that the water bill is going to always stay with the owner. In DC, in Maryland, so if a tenant doesn't pay it and they move out, it's a lien on your property. It's going to be you that pay. So what you don't want to do is make sure that the bill is going to the tenant and then you don't even know. So one nugget I will give you is just make sure that the bill is coming to you and one to the house. And when you see they're not paying it, you need to act accordingly quickly, or you need to pay it, because it will, pretty much catch up to you. And if they leave and never pay, and unfortunately the water bill, the companies don't cut the water off until they get past $1,000. So, you're stuck paying that bill if they don't pay it. But there's different creative ways. As an expert property manager, we handle making sure we get your water bill paid.
I love it. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and we can definitely vouch for that, because we get water bills for all our properties as well.
Absolutely. I ain't not gonna be tenants. They're not gonna get me.
Yeah, you got to be creative, and that's what I'm all about. Creative. 20 years of experience and dealing with tenants for that long. Common pitfalls. I made mistakes in the beginning too, but there's that you learn. That's why laws are put in place, because people break them. So when in the property management, that's why we create new creative ways, because we have professional tenants that don't pay.
And actually, we have some questions coming in for some people who are interested in getting into the property management business. One of our guests is asking, what advice would you give to someone who's interested in property management as a career? Like, what are some essential skill sets that you need to be successful?
Yeah, well, we teach the class. So you probably definitely need to go to property management training. I have an accreditation in property management. I'm an accredited property manager. I went through an institution for property management and paid thousands and thousands of dollars for my credentials. So if you're willing to invest that type, then I would tell you to look into some property management institutions. But most of those institutions will not allow you to enroll in their school until you actually have someone write you a letter of recommendation, and that you've already managed 15 to 20 properties before. So I do teach the property management class. You do get a certificate. It is a 8-hour class with a 1-hour break, and so we do teach that.
Awesome. That's a good opportunity for a plug. What's the class? How can we get to the class?
Yeah. So I haven't rolled out the date for the next class, but I will definitely have you guys roll that out. It will be soon, because I'm more hands-on. So with the pandemic, I didn't want to do a virtual class, but it seems like the demand for learning property management and what I do, I get inboxed all the time about it. So I probably will have to create a Zoom class in regards to it, or online class. So right now, with everything being closed, I can probably do like a 6 to 8 person in the classroom. So I'm trying to put that together. So give me like a week.
Just let me know so I can have an empty mind that day.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of information, and we go over everything. And with the property management class too, it is a cost associated with it, but after the class, I am there to mentor you for 90 days and to get your business going, or ready to make sure that you're doing what you need to do. So it's just not the class and then you're dropped off. You do get the support after as well.
Yeah. And as a follow-up to your the question for property management, someone is asking, is it a ton of liability for a property manager? Is this a lucrative business? Because they've been told that it's not a lucrative business. So what's your take on that?
Oh, I know. That's why I said, everybody always say, oh, she's just the property manager. But I wouldn't be doing this 20 years. And I am a licensed agent as well. So I wouldn't, just decide not to do retail real estate if it wasn't lucrative, because I do hold a license. So it is a a slow process. It's all in volume. So again, you really need to know how to market and know what you're doing for it to be lucrative. People do it for different reasons, but I'm in it for real, for the for the long haul and for the volume of it all. And it is a liability. Of course, any business or any trade or designation is a liability, no matter what you're doing. So you just need to make sure you've educated yourself and know what you're doing. Like, again, a lot of people just say, I just want to do this and start shop, and they really don't look into, they just think it's easy. So you definitely need insurances. General liability insurance is the same as any company. You need to protect yourself. But actually knowing the law and having an attorney on retainer will keep you out of trouble.
Okay. And actually, that's one of the questions that came up because they just want clarity to know that as a property manager, and it's back to the eviction process, because it seems like people really want to know about this eviction process. So you pay out of the monthly property management fee, the court filing fees and attorney retainer, or is that a separate fee that the homeowner or investor will be responsible for?
Well, 320 Properties Services we have our own attorney on retainer. So that's just to keep us out of trouble and to make sure we are keeping up with the landlord and tenant laws. So that protects us, but it protects you too, because it's education on what you cannot and can do. As far as the failure to pay filing fees, we do pay for those up front. And when the tenant comes to court and pay, that money that we collect includes those filing fees. Now, if they never pay and they're evicted, then yes, the owner is to pay those fees. If they don't pay those filing fees, then that is a fee that we do pass on, the same as maintenance. So if your toilet breaks, we'll find someone to fix it, and we have our own maintenance staff. We'll fix it, and then once the rent comes in, we disperse it out of that. If the rent never comes in, then yes, we do send you a bill. So it's the same with the failure to pay process. It is passed on to the tenant, but if they don't pay it, then it is a fee that's passed on.
And even the late fees for paying the rent late, that goes to the property manager, correct?
Yes, that does. But again, sometimes we negotiate it, but yeah, because we're working to get it. So.
Understood. And let's talk a little bit about repairs, because you just brought that up. How does that work? A tenant calls 10 o'clock at night, the bathtub is flowing over, like what happens next?
Right. So you are a good property manager. Full service is going to have a 24-hour maintenance line. So there's no reason why a tenant should ever call a phone and get a recording. They should get a live person 24 hours a day. So if they call in the middle of the night and there's an emergency, we have a dispatch that is going to answer their call. And so, if it's something that is a non-emergency, we always ask that they wait, 24 hours for us to correct the problem. But we have our own maintenance team. So, a good property management company will have their own vendors and their maintenance staff. So there's never like you're just trying to fumble through the phone book or Google and Angie's List to find a vendor to take care of things. You should already have a vendor list. They should already be working for you, and they should be handling those things pretty quickly.
So you got your crew, in other words.
Oh yeah, you have to. It's like you got your lawyer, you have to have your maintenance. So that goes hand in hand. Otherwise, and I get a lot of new agents or people just trying to do property management on the side because they think they just want to make a little money. And then that's the part where they get very frustrated at, because if you're calling your vendors 1 or 2 times to fix a toilet, and you only call them that one time, they're not going to rush to fix your toilet. They're going to make you wait. And so a lot of people get frustrated, and even landlords, that I couldn't get someone over here in time to fix this and that. And that's because you haven't built a vendor relationship. And if you're only having like 1 or 2 properties, most vendors are not going to make you priority. But with the property management company, they know we have tons of properties and we're going to be sending them business all the time. So they're like, well, I'm going to get over there because I know she'll call me again if I do a good job. So maintenance is handled efficiently. And again, you want maintenance done quickly because that will affect your rent as well.
Hire the professional.
Thank you, husband. I love his plug. Hire the professional. We have another questions coming in. They're asking, what is your average occupancy rate?
Average occupancy rate is like at least 95%. I don't like vacancies, and I love tenant retention. So like I said in my prior spiel on the full service, you should be checking your leases. And that's where the accounting software comes in at, because when I turn on my accounting software, it tells me every day whose lease is about to expire. 60 days before it does. So my tenant retention is low because 60 days before I'm already advertising their property for rent to find a tenant. And so, and in my leases, it states that I can market and advertise, and you have to cooperate with showings when your lease, if you're not renewing your lease. So I don't keep enough properties for tenants. I get people to call us all the time asking us for vacancies, and like right now we only have 2. So it's very low.
That's actually really, really good. That's really, really good. And as you were talking about the lease expiration, just want some clarity. So what you're seeing with the software that you're currently using, so does an email go out to the tenant and the owner, or you do a phone call, or how does that process work when you get notified?
Yes, unfortunately, I mean, yeah, we do have a mechanism to automatically contact the tenant to know that their lease is expiring. Yes, one of my softwares does that, but I'm more hands-on, so we're calling prior to, like we're hands-on to call them and find out what they want to do, because sometimes we're offering a lease incentive. Sometimes we'll say we might clean their carpet for them if they stay, especially my good tenants. I'm like, we want to keep them. So we're going to make sure we call prior to and say, we're going to keep your rate the same. We're going to give you a gift card. Is there anything you want, like a ceiling fan? You want a new microwave? I mean, there's just different things, again, to be creative to keep our good tenants, which is keeping your vacancy rate low.
Wow, you make me want to be a tenant. I want a ceiling fan. Shoot.
You got to pay your rent on time.
I think I pay my rent on time. I mean, wow, this is some really awesome nuggets that you dropped here today, Keita. I didn't realize how much, I mean, I knew you guys did a lot of work in the background, but I didn't realize how much work you did in the background. So this was truly an eye-opener for me, and I'm hoping it was an eye-opener for our guests who joined us this evening as well. So,
absolutely.
Yeah,
for sure. And just another question, like, say I was an investor and I was coming to you to get my property in your company as property management, what does that look like for me?
If you wanted to start the process, so definitely just reach out to us, and then we do a consultation just to see what your needs are, and we go over your portfolio with you and give our expertise on many things that you would need done.
All right, do you have, well, there's no more questions out there, and I think we've covered a ton of information. Do you have any final words for us on like what you should know about property management and look for in a property management company that you're looking to hire?
So again, the most common pitfall nugget I would give is do not self-manage, not unless you don't have a full-time job, and this is going to be your full-time job. And then also, when in the vetting process of your property management company, just make sure, as I said, they have all the tools in place to effectively manage your property. I mean, ask them to send you a demo of their software. Ask them to send you a financial report. Ask them, are they sending you a 1099 at the end of the year, and give you a sample of that. And then ask them about the tenant screening process. It's just a lot of things that I touched on. I mean, that's enough to vet a person. You just want to make sure they have everything in place and make sure there's no hidden fees and their experience. And then ask, can you have references? So that's another thing.
Okay, awesome. And I actually had one more question, and it went right up. Oh, and also if you have a lawyer on speed dial, because I would have never thought about that, but I'm grateful that I didn't have to think about that because we're working with you. So I appreciate it.
I do, and we're on a text basis. I can text. Actually, I have 2 lawyers on speed dial. And that's because, I mean, I run a full service property management firm, and I am in court, and we are sued, and everybody's not going to like us, whether it's the landlord that don't like us or the tenant, and we're not going to make everybody happy. And some people think that the property manager is, I hate to say it's like God, like we can make them pay the rent. So sometimes when rent is not collected, we're blamed. Like, well, you put them in the house and they're not paying the rent. We are overseeing with a third party, so I can't technically go and say you're going to pay this rent. If they don't pay it, I'm trying my best to get them out. So again, some people just have the myth that that's why I hired a property manager, because I wanted them to pay the rent. we can't make people pay their bills. We just hope they do, and we enforce those rules. So that's what we do. We enforce the rules. We can't make them pay. So yes, I have an attorney on speed dial because I've been sued by landlords as well as tenants. So.
And you know what, Keita, one thing I did think of, because I'm sure there's some people who are on here who are really impressed with the work you do, because I sure am. What about people who are on here who are currently working with a property manager and they're not satisfied and they would like to start working with you? How will that process work? Do they have to wait till their current agreement with their property manager is done, or just shed some light on that for us?
I get that a lot too. I get leads from other landlord investors that's not happy. So we can help out in that process. We can read over the contract that you signed to make sure there is a loophole for you to get out if you are under contract. And again, in vetting a property management company, you do need to ask them to see their contract, because some contracts, the property managers make you pay a fee to leave, like thousands of dollars. So it's those hidden fees that you don't know. When you're not happy, they'll make you pay, or you can't get out of the agreement. Our agreement is 30-day, mutual termination for any reason, because technically if you don't like us and you don't want to work, with us, then we want to let you out of your contract. And so most are like that, but some do have those hidden fees. So we will read those for you, as well as just take over. So if you contact us, then we contact your current management company and say, hey, this particular owner investor is switching companies, and would you provide us with XYZ? And we kind of take it up from there. That way you don't even have to bear the phone call to say, I'm leaving you. So we would do it. Yeah, we'll do it the professional way. And most of the time when the property management calls another property management company, it works out because they understand. They're like, okay, it's not like you called and they're begging you to stay. So it's just another professional company. So we do that. We can create your termination letter for you as well, to send to the property management company, and the list of things that you need to switch it over.
Hire the professional. Come on, Donnell. Hire the
professional.
And last but not least, Keita, I've put your email address out there. Do you want to share your phone number for if people want to reach out to you directly with any additional questions they may have?
Yeah, so if you want a property management consultation for 320 properties, or you want to just ask some questions, give us a call at 240-487-9959. Again, that's 240-487-9959.
Number to the professional. That's the number. And just some quick advice too that I've learned too over the years of investing. If you're an investor and you're thinking of buying a whole, like Keita talked about earlier, and you're looking to have your properties rented out, make sure and include the property management fee in your numbers when you're buying it. So that's just not something that you want to have. We just don't have time to do what a professional can do, and it'll make our life, I know it's for us, it's been a lot easier having a professional handle your property.
And you should also to add to that, investors, please contact 320s before you buy an investment property, so we can actually find out, before you call us to manage it, if it's a good location, the rents that you want, and everything as well. So we can definitely help you out with that.
Yeah. I know I did. She sent me a list. Hey, you need
yeah. And actually, that's what I was going to talk about. I love the fact that when we were buying our property, we called Keita, and we was like, hey, Keita, can you come check this out? And like Donnell said, she came back with a list that was emailed. I was like, okay, I didn't want you to do that. I just wanted you to check it out. Not send me a list of things. I'm joking. But it was very helpful, because now we're in the process of addressing those items, so we won't run into any issues with any future tenants. So thank you very much for that. We really appreciate you. All right. Well, I guess, someone asked to pass on the information on the property management class. So as Keita just shared, she doesn't have all the details yet, but as soon as she does, I will definitely send out an email with the information to our class, to everyone that has taken the time out of their day to attend this webinar. We're definitely going to get it out to you. So Keita, you're on the clock. They want that property management class.
We're going to put it together. We're going to put it together, and I'll have you email out the date.
Okay. And people are saying great information and thank you. So I want to say thank you for your time, Keita. Keep up the excellent job you're doing. We're so happy to be in partnership and in business with you. You have taken really good care of our properties, and we're grateful for that. Donnell, you have any final words for us?
Thank you, and keep on providing that professional service that most investors and everybody else out here need, whether they know it or not. They need it. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
Just want to thank everybody else for tuning in.
Thank you guys for spending time with us this evening.
Yes, thank you. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you for your
Bye.
time. Bye.
Yeah.